Charlie Kirk is a name that I've only recently come across, which thank goddess for, in this sense, thank goddess for algorithms that do are kind of echo chambers, because I've just been so blind to red pill content or far right content. I have just recently learned who Charlie Kirk is. I think I've seen some clips. I'm obviously not a fan of what he's telling, specifically young men, but everyone. And this video that he put out yesterday is called "The Real Reason Young Women Are So Lost." And I am so fascinated. I don't know who this man is. I don't know how he got 3 million subscribers. Apparently people support his ideas. Let's see how much of a clown this man is. Also, I'm going to be so for real. Again, coming from my background in stand-up, I am not promising not to make jokes about this stuff. I'm not promising to be super nice and sweet. That is not what I was really talking about earlier when I was saying, hey, let's reach across all of these boundaries to unify. I'm going to do my best to be kind, but good goddess. Let's see what Charlie Kirk has to say about the real reason young women so lost. I think he means are so lost. So already we have a grammar error. Am I the only one saying that? Christ alive. What am I getting into?
Remarkable new study is out that shows that 20-year-old white men are more right-wing than 75-year-old white men. And I've been saying this on this program for quite some time. Now, I know I'm about to get a bunch of angry emails from folks that are 75-year-old white men. No, I'm just as conservative. You are the exception, not the rule. But I completely believe this, and it doesn't include the audience. But of course this is true. And by the way, it shouldn't make you angry. This should actually make you very happy. This is actually a phenomenal sign of hope for you. 20-year-old white men are more right-wing than 75-year-old white men. And traditionally, the idea is the Republican Party is just a bunch of old white men. Well, now the Republican Party is young and old white men and blacks and Hispanics. The one demographic, however, that is a big, big, big issue is college-educated women. It's a major...
Hold on. All right, so I already have things to say, unsurprisingly. Hold on. I have covered before a lot of the findings and theories behind why younger men are, one, doubling down into Christian fundamentalist ideologies, which then, of course, translates into being far right-wing leaning politics. And I don't know where Charlie Kirk is going to go. I'm going to guess he's going to blame it on women, since he literally just said college-educated women is a major factor in why men are becoming more right-wing. Okay, so I'm assuming he's about to blame this, or not blame, because he's excited that young men are, more right-wing. I assume the reason is going to be the fault in some way, shape, or form of women. I'm just like a random guess that it's women's fault. But the reality is, I will admit, and I've talked about this before too, a lot of the liberal identity politics conversations, one of the ways in which we are at fault is by specifically villainizing straight white men over and over and over again. Now, I do think there is a difference between holding straight white men accountable for taking responsibility for their internalized biases, and also the prejudices that they have the privilege of getting away with in a way that provides them more resources at the exploitation of all of the other marginalized communities. Because in reality, what we are fighting over here on this side of things is the system, right? The heteronormative white supremacist patriarchy. And I will admit, even myself, I have biases against straight white men. I see a straight white man and I'm clocking, where do you fall in all of these conversations? What do you mean you've healed? Have you actually, I have these internal biases too. The difference is, of course, that straight white men, again, have more access to resources to deal with, or to prop up the internal prejudices and biases they have. But I do think that, one, the villainization of straight white men, that's a little bit too complex to sift through for someone who's just like getting a surface level feeling attacked by the left, right? That I understand why a lot of younger white men are more right wing. The other issue that I have brought up before is that because religion does such a good job of having community every single week, and is kind of a stronghold of them organizing and staying together and getting the same message that their neighbors are, etc., we do have a lot of fractures on the left, on particularly like in leftism, which is the different, in opposition to just like the liberal, corrupt party of the Democratic hierarchy. But there is like a lack of third spaces, as I've talked about before. There is a lack specifically for men, because it's kind of, I have a third space. Like every Saturday afternoon, I meet up with all of my girls and some of my other friends for brunch. Like I don't text anybody. We just show up. Hey, I'll see you there. Right. And I think it's a lot easier because women have been socialized to prioritize empathy and connectivity and community. We are more horizontally focused. It is a lot easier for women outside of religion to find third spaces, to find places where they can build community. And unfortunately, we are not as structurally prepared for third spaces that meet the needs outside of sports, which, not everyone loves sports. Outside of sports, there's not a lot of structural institutions for men outside of religion to have community. And they honestly need it more than ever. And so in that sense, I totally understand why a lot of young men, and all men are doubling down on the Christian institution, because that is their only chance for connectivity. Okay, let's see what else Charlie has to say about college educated women.
Major problem beyond anything that is really easy to explain on this program. I do want to play the Steve Kornacki clip. However, Andrew's right. This is a great example. Now, I'm very pro-life, you know that, and you don't have to even agree with my abortion stances in this clip. But what is important is to look into the mentality and into the window of the tenacity of your average left-leaning, liberal, Democrat activist on campus. We don't have the clip, but we do have it? Okay. So this is 289. By the way, this clip is going very bonkers, from the University of Tennessee. This right here is the divide in America. Not even about abortion. It's not, the topic is abortion, but just look at how she processes information. Gross. Before I play the piece of tape, let me prove this point further. In male self-help books, you will find words such as must and ought and should. In male self-help books, it tells men that you need to go do something and you ought to go act. Get off your tail and be better. In women self-help books, it is you deserve. You should get. The Western female self-help worldview is incredibly narcissistic. It's incredibly self-centered. It's not about duty or obligation. This is the furthest extrapolation of feminism. Here's 289.
Okay, I can be chill. This is another thing I have talked about extensively in some of my other videos on YouTube, and also Britt Hartley, No Nonsense Spirituality on YouTube. She is a spiritual atheist director. She's very well educated. I'm borrowing a lot of her ideas and kind of expanding on them on my own. There is a reason for that difference in language between, and I'm not going to use male and female terminology here because I don't know, I'm trying to evolve past the animal kingdom, Charlie, but men's self-help books, there is different rhetoric between a man's self-help guru and a woman's self-help guru. There are differences there. But one of the reasons for that is how differently we are conditioned. And one thing that you will find is very important to me is balance and equilibrium. That is the nature of equality. That is the nature of reaching out horizontally, right? Instead of trying to be vertical and pushing people down or, idolizing people on top or whatever. So there is a reason that a lot of the men's self-help gurus, or even like within spirituality spaces, or even some of the rhetoric in the Bible, if we want to talk about a patriarchal religion as an example, there's a reason that a lot of the terminology and rhetoric used there is about tearing the ego down and becoming more humble. And you have to do this. And it is a sense of duty. And the way that you can be good is very rigid, and it is very ritualistic, like in a dogmatic sense. And that is because men, one, are not innately like biologically, but in a combination of biology and the culture that has nurtured them, that has shaped them, their environment, their ego is propped up from birth on the following of orders from their superiors. Men are the hierarchy of patriarchy in all of these institutions is unfortunately so much more ingrained in men, right? I always say that men are the naturally submissive gender. I'll say it. Now, that doesn't mean that womanhood is inherently dominant, because again, womanhood is about horizontally reaching. We don't fucking care about hierarchy and patriarchy, but manhood is conditioned to be so much more submissive and hierarchical, right? And so then on the other side, that's the reason that women's self-help books and women's version of spirituality and all of these things, he's calling it narcissistic. But in reality, the way to balance out our conditioning as women is to build up, to boost up our ego that has for our entire lives had to take the fucking back seat for everyone else around us. We are conditioned to be caregivers and emotionally nurturing. And that is, for generations, it has been unpaid labor, but it is still, in fact, labor. And to say that boosting up our ego, which has been shattered and obliterated by the patriarchy, and calling it narcissistic is just such a skewed perspective. And it's so frustrating to me, because I want Charlie Kirk, probably more than Charlie Kirk does, to find his balance, to find his equilibrium. And right now, he can't see the other side of this argument. He can't see he in no way, shape, or form sees my perspective. But I do understand that he is coming from a place of fear, that his position in society is threatened, even though we've seen time and time again that when marginalized communities are brought up onto an equal playing field, everyone benefits. Hello. I understand that Charlie Kirk is apparently afraid of women, and especially college-educated women. Like, I can't imagine how scary that must be for him. The horror.
So happened to be pregnant.
Oh, you don't happen to get pregnant. It's not like getting COVID.
I know how it works. I know how it works.
You don't get the flu.
I know.
How about this? You take responsibility for your orgasms and
What if
stop
that
eliminating
doesn't work?
people smaller than you.
So you're saying I should carry a baby and ruin my collegiate life?
How about this? Instead of saying ruin, first of all, babies are a blessing. Stop talking at them as if they're some sort of annoyance.
I will have to drop out of college.
Number two, if you play certain games, you win certain prizes. If you're going to go have sex...
So you're saying I should drop out of college to support my child and supporting my life?
I'm saying if you're going to engage in coitus, in the practice of having children, you might end up with a baby. So know that. And guess what? You don't need to have sex before you get married. It's not like showering. It's not like eating.
Are you married?
Yes, with 2 beautiful children.
Wow, good for you.
I could tell you're not married.
Yeah.
If you see, why are young men gravitating towards conservatism? Because it's about responsibility, about order, about duty, about reason. Why are young women gravitating towards the Democrat Party? Because many of them are like her. What do you mean? Are you going to tell me that I might have to drop out of college? Essentially, I don't want to take any responsibility for my actions.
No. the responsibility, which was even in that clip, evident in that clip, the responsibility of that child is traditionally speaking going to fall more on the woman. As she was saying, she would have had to drop out of college, but neither Charlie Kirk nor her, honestly, recognized that whoever got her pregnant, which, by the way, according to Charlie, is the result of playing the game. And first of all, a woman doesn't have to have an orgasm to get pregnant. So I don't even know why he brought that up, because it's the man's orgasm that results in pregnancy. But I can understand if maybe Charlie Kirk has a difficult time understanding the biology of sexuality. But there was no showcasing of whoever got her pregnant, his responsibility and having to, he would have been able to still stay in college, is why she brought up the fact that she would have had to drop out of college. So I think that when he's talking about women don't have to take responsibility, I think what it is we're just tired of taking too much of the responsibility of child rearing, instead of having to participate again in a man's world, which does require us to have our own income, like on so many levels. So there's that.
And again, it's not even about the abortion thing. It's actually much more psychologically interesting and deeper than that. That's just a manifestation of a deeper political problem, which is that I don't want to have to grow up. I want to remain in charge of everything all the time and do what feels good, not what I ought to do. You see, men are gravitating towards this idea of duty. Young ladies are gravitating towards this idea of license and licentiousness. And in that video, I sensed emptiness in her, and I do have compassion for her. And that is why young women increasingly are incredibly depressed, incredibly addicted, far more likely to be on antidepressants, because that...
Okay, first of all, men are also increasingly more depressed and more lonely. That's literally why we're calling it a male loneliness epidemic. So I don't think that point is really fair at all. Also, I don't know how, like, educating more women is, like, failing them. Like, if they're learning more, just that concept of, like, women are learning too much to their own detriment. I'm not sure how that's working in Charlie Kirk's favor. But anyway.
That leads you into a very sad, vacuous existence. And that's what liberalism does. Liberalism at its furthest extrapolation is a cultural cult. The only group that is supporting DEI, the only group is white women with college degrees. I do not know how to solve.
That is just wildly untrue. That is just wildly untrue.
This problem. I am open to suggestions. But
open to suggestions. It sounds like the only suggestion he's actually open to is women not getting as college educated.
White women with college degrees are so infected. I also bet they tend to be a little bit more secular.
The horror.
Little less serious about their faith. It can take time. Many people have come around, but the data is the data. You have to look at this. It is chilling stuff. And I always wonder, where are they getting their news and information from? It's not CNN. Their ratings aren't high enough. Maybe it's Eat, Pray, Love type podcasting. Maybe they're watching Love is Blind. Maybe that's where they get their information from. Like Daisy. Play cut 205.
Also see this. White women with at least a college degree, the only group of white voters that really kind of is on the left politically, aligned with progressive causes, democratic politics. Give you an example here. It's that DEI question, right here, that we asked about in our poll. We had two big statements we read to voters. Basically, do you want to continue DEI programs, or do you think they should be ended? And again, look at this divide here. White men, no degree, end it. White men with a degree, end it, they say. White women, no degree, end it, they say, by double digits. And then white women with a college degree, completely different by a nearly 40-point margin, they say, to continue DEI.
So that does bring up something. I don't really know how to respond to all of those numbers as far as, like, why. I mean, I could easily break down why I think that as far as, like, white people with or without degrees intersected with white men and women. Like I can see how white women with college degrees are more left-leaning than all of the other ones. I can see that. But the point I want to make is how that's something that I've really been kind of challenged with recently, is how as a white woman and living in a white supremacist imperialist regime, having all of this privilege like on a platter, right? And having to be intentional about first of all, why I'm doing this in the first place, why I'm having these conversations, making this kind of YouTube content, trying to reach across these ideological battlegrounds, etc. And the challenge, I think, for white women is to we have a responsibility to be more of a bridge than like feminists of color. We have a responsibility to be more of a bridge than, like, at least for me, I'm not completely straight, but I'm mostly straight. And so I have a responsibility to be more of a bridge than the LGBTQIA plus community and non-binary people, etc. And it's something I have been thinking about as far as like how much privilege we have, how much responsibility we have for it. And that is, I mean, obviously the numbers kind of are indicative of this interesting position for white college educated women who want to have a better world. We want to have all of these things. And the only way to really, I don't want to say the only way. I'm still learning what it's like as a white educated woman here in the United States to reach back to like essentially the old version of me who was still so far in white supremacy that I had no idea, and patriarchy and capitalism and all of the things, that I had no idea what anything about class consciousness was even like. Like, I feel a responsibility to like reach backwards to other women who are still kind of stuck in those mentalities, and just kind of be a representative for communities that are even more marginalized than myself. So I will say that white educated women have a unique responsibility to bring about this better future we're all talking about. But I don't really know what Charlie's point is here, other than to just say we're not doing enough, which in a sense we're not.
Emphasis should be on the college degree. Now, interestingly, college degrees don't infect college young men or men as much as young women. White college indoctrinated women will ruin America if we let them. They are brainwashed. They are completely indoctrinated. I see it every single day. And again, the worldview that is being uploaded to young women on a daily basis is hyper narcissistic, hyper selfish. I am the only one that matters. Who are you to tell me how I should act? And it makes them miserable. Women are norms enforcers. It's biology. They are more likely to follow societal norms and customs and narratives. And the ones we have are poisonous.
That is just factually not true. I'm sick. Okay, hold on, let me back up. Okay, I see what he's saying. Anyone who is more marginalized under patriarchy and hierarchy, actually, okay, I do know what he's saying. Or what he's referencing. I don't agree with what he's saying, but what he's referencing is a true point of anyone more marginalized it can be harder for them to break free from all of these paradigms, obviously, because when you have to worry more about putting food on the table as a marginalized person, you're not going to have as much time to like question the powers that be, even if you might have this innate anger and rage at the system that obviously isn't serving you. So I see what he's talking about. He's using it to kind of radicalize these young men against women. I don't understand the point of why he's radicalizing men against women, or I guess specifically college-educated white women, because isn't that increasing the divide between the male loneliness epidemic and all of these women that they could be having these beautiful, emotionally connected connections with? Like, men say the darndest things. That's absolutely right.
That again, women are less likely to defy authority. They're less likely to challenge authority. They're more likely to wear the mask and get 9 booster shots. And so when societal norms are terrible, they follow them and they follow the crowd. That is what women do. Thankfully, though, broadly, the country thinks poorly of the Democrat Party. A death blow clip. Cut 210, Steve Kornacki.
We found something we've never found before in more than 30 years of this poll. What you're looking at here is the image of each political party, the Democrats and the Republicans. And look at this. This blue, it's the Democrats. Minus 28, it says. What does that mean? It means that when we ask this, do you have a positive or negative view of the party? Just 27% of voters say they have a positive image of the Democratic Party. 55% say they think of the Democratic Party negatively. That's negative 28 points. This is the trend line. Going back 30 years, you can see neither party has ever come anywhere near as close to this. It's fallen off a cliff, that number has, for Democrats since the election.
I have seen that clip of the distrust and the lack of faith in the Democratic Party. I think that's not really like a new concept, though. I think it has been worsening. In this sense, I do agree with some of whatever point Charlie is about to make here. Terrible sentence that came out of my mouth. But I think that people are starting to realize how corrupt the dual party system is in the first place, which, you know, I'm not quite well read up enough on other like potential kinds of democratically elected systems. Like multi-party system sounds super cool to me. There's also like a multi-party system with ranking voting, where instead of just picking your favorite when you go into the ballot box, you choose like your top 3 and you rank them in order. And so the ranking comes more into play, and it's less of a like us versus them mentality, which honestly, just breaking all of this down, literally everything Charlie Kirk is saying here about men versus women and Democrats versus Republicans, whatever, all of this us versus them mentality is, again, a product of hierarchy and patriarchy and capitalism, etc., and kind of is what we need to be pushing against in the first place. So in that sense, look, if I'm not going to be the one that says we need to support the Democratic Party more. They have let us down time and time again. I'm over it. I'm fucking over it. I don't know what's next, but I know they're not going to, I don't trust them. I just see him as a grifter for capital, so that means he pushes the capitalist line to keep people ignorant. Yeah, unfortunately, that's what I'm starting to see here. What a great first impression I have of this guy named Charlie Kirk.
Building a political party around toxic femininity and shrill hall monitor enforcement turns out to be broadly very unpopular with the American people. And the Democrat Party seems uninterested.
That is not fair at all. We haven't lost. Okay, I think that people on the left have a better perspective of why we don't have faith in the Democratic Party anymore, and it is absolutely nothing to do with feminism. People are not looking, unless you want to make the point that the Democratic Party is doing this whole virtue signaling of identity politics more than the actual work of fighting against capitalism and tyranny in this country. I can understand that perspective, but to say that us on the left, who he is not a member of, are upset with the Democratic Party because of essentially feminism and the standing up for marginalized communities is like, no, we don't think they're doing enough. That is absolute backwards to his point. So that's super frustrating and just wrong. That's just wrong.
Interested in adjusting itself, uninterested in modernizing. Here's Jamal Bowman, 356.
That's not true. And this shows, again, the American people do not trust Elon Musk. And Elon Musk is incompetent in his position. And how do we know? Because they fired tens of thousands of people, was challenged in court. The court said the people have to go back, and now the people are coming back. He's incompetent. He's a thief. He's a Nazi, and people don't trust him. Period.
Let me just...
Doesn't he have a fire alarm to go pull? And I think I heard a smoke detector. You see, Jamal Bowman is the worst of all of the Democrats. He is not very bright, incredibly hostile and aggressive, and that's who they want to build their party around.
Wow.
That incompetent Nazi, as you'd put it, Jamal Bowman, just rescued astronauts. What have you ever built in your life? And that is the Democrat Party.
I can't. Wow. Well, I would like to give myself the smoke detector was crazy though. You're right. I was like looking around my room and I was like, what's going on? I would like to give myself props for opening up my perspective to someone who thinks about things very differently than me. Charlie Kirk and I don't think we'll ever agree. Actually, I don't want to say that. We might not now ever agree on much. I would like to think, do I believe that a utopia is possible? No. Am I going to be incessantly optimistic for the sake of resisting against the fatalistic nature of capitalism and how the elites who are in power, they do want us to feel as if it is our destiny to be disempowered? I will continue to fight against that mentality by being overly optimistic. Yes, hello, welcome. My name is Kayse Melone. That optimism is not going anywhere. However, so yeah, I think that in this case, I would love to imagine that Charlie Kirk and I can find some common ground. I, based on this specific video, cannot fucking fathom how that could happen. But boy, howdy, did that open my eyes. Man, this is what you're telling men. No wonder they don't know how to approach women when you're villainizing women left and right. Like, I mean, good goddess. No wonder there's a male loneliness epidemic when you're saying that women getting, I guess specifically white women getting more educated is the downfall of this country. Good goddess. Here I am over here at the beginning of this video trying to be like, look, I think the male loneliness epidemic is kind of everyone's fault. So how can we solve it? And here he is just like, nope, women's fault. Women shouldn't be educated. Nope. That was... Goddamn. All right. Well, I've learned something. I hope you all have too.